Hello, my name is Jordan.
And I'm Crystal.
We are the owners of VanGo Auto. We are a Midwest auto repair shop and a rental company. We specialize in rentals of classic Volkswagen camper vans, 1986 to 91, and we also specialize in repairing and maintaining those. So got a whole lot going on, but this is for our rental.
VanGo has 5 Volkswagen Vanagons that we rent out to the public. They all have their own personality, so we gave them names. We have the Wolf, Blue Ox, Bernie, Blue Dream, and Cruising Rex.
Each of the vans, we go through them. Mechanically, they're sound. We stock them full of gear. I think it's we want to make sure that we do everything we can from A to Z for people to have a really great adventure and experience.
So it really is just about showing up and going. So we have equipped all of the vans with your sleep kitchen camp gear. So you really don't have to think of anything. You just show up and go. We make it really easy. There also are add-on packages if you have extra people joining you, or if you are going fishing, or hammocks. There's a whole slew of items you can add to really customize your experience and make it what you want.
The reason for this video today is also just to give everybody an outline of what it looks like to be a renter of one of our camper vans. And the orientation is pretty critical. With these vehicles being classic vehicles, they're not replaceable, they're not easily repairable, and we just want each renter to have a great experience. So keeping them in tip-top shape is just really on top of the list, and that really is involved by allowing all of our renters knowing as much as they can about how to rent it and what its function is about, and then how to keep it in good shape without any sort of damages.
If something is damaged, sometimes we can't replace it. Sometimes it's really expensive or difficult to locate because they are such rare vehicles. So there is a responsibility in paying attention to this video and helping us give this opportunity to other people to years to come. It's fun to go down memory lane in something like this. It's not like your big bulky RV that you have to figure out how to park. This is really easy to drive, easy to maneuver. You're right over the wheels, and they're just fun to ride in and drive. So you'll enjoy not only the ride, but also when you set up. We'll teach you how to set up the van, and it's quite the experience. So we're excited to share that with you. So paperwork is not always the most exciting piece, but it's important. So we're going to dive into that, and I'll try to make it short. So this is what I call the VanGo Bible. It's your manual. All of the vans have a manual, so everything we go over in orientation, this video, is also going to be in this manual to refer to. There are folks that will come up to you and want to know where you rented this van. So if you want to just lead them to us, you could just give them a little brochure. Everyone does have a journal in their van. Please do, if you feel like it, log your positive experience. Share it with our community of what you did, where you went. People enjoy reading that. Contact information. Email us if you have a question. If it's not in the manual, if it's not on the website, go ahead and email us. We're really, really good at getting back to people right away with their questions and getting those answered. If it is an emergency, that is important that we talk to you. So call our number, and then if we are not open at that time, option 3 will dial directly to our cell phone. Please call, on the weekends, at night, whenever you need us, if it is an emergency only. This manual really does include a lot. How to drive a classic, what does that entail? There is a page here that lists all of your sleep kitchen camp gear. If the If it is indicated on the sheet, it is in your van. Your terms and conditions are here. This is really critical because you need to know what you're agreeing to. Some important things to highlight in the terms and conditions. You need to be 25 years old. You need proof of insurance, car insurance. You have to have a valid ID. You really do need to be at this orientation if you're a driver. That's important. And just if you can refuel at the gas station on the corner up a block, that would be helpful too. Premium gas only. And then just, we do want you to save all the receipts that indicating that you have filled up with premium gas. That's helpful. So just turn those in at the end of your rental when you turn in the rental keys. Bernie has a Subaru engine, that's the brown van, but the other vans, we do ask that you warm up the van, and I would say about 5-7 minutes before taking off in the morning, just to so you're not driving on a cold engine, and then just plan rest stops along the way, 15-20 minutes here and there if you're doing a long driving day. TLC for the vans. Again, this is critical. If you have kids or dogs, they don't understand that these classic vehicles are important. They're different. There's a lot that they may not understand of how to treat a classic van, so you're there to teach them and kind of guide them through that. If something suddenly sounds differently mechanically, or any lights on the dash turn on, again, just give us a call. And this one is really important. Go ahead and enjoy your experience. That's why you're here. There is information in here also on maintenance. We think maintenance is really important. Every single time that you come back or a rental comes back, we are being really proactive and getting things tackled with repairs and fluid changes, and we don't want you to have a problem, so we're very proactive and we take that seriously. So it does have a good, we have a good inspection sheet that the mechanics go through at VanGo Auto to take care of the rentals, so they're in tip-top shape for you. In here also you'll have all of the items we're talking about on this orientation. So there is a folder at the back, some manuals, the old school manual, the radio manual, and you also have AAA registration and insurance. We do have a wraparound insurance policy. You are the primary insurance, but we do have that wraparound policy. And then please do refer to our website. Our website is awesome. It has a lot of great resources that will help you through your experience, not only with the van, but just ideas about having a good travel experience.
All right, so want to just talk a little bit about some features on the vans. One of the most important things is your key, so you can get to where you need to go and get in and out of the van. This key does a few different things. It's going to open up the doors, 2 front doors, a side door, the back latch, but it's also going to open up your gas cap. So important to know that, because you can't fill up without your key. The good thing is you can't leave anywhere without your key, and it's going to be attached to the gas cap, so make sure you know where your gas cap is located. As far as the use of the van, pretty easy to use, you know, keeping in mind that these things are classics and they are a little bit just different than our newer cars. So doors, we just ask that people are gentle. People are gentle with opening and closing the doors. They really don't need much effort, as well as opening them back up. You know, we don't want them to be swinging out. They more or less will lock and slide on their own pretty freely. So please be gentle with doors. Even when it comes to the cabinetry and all the different features, be gentle with that. If something is hard to open, reassess. If something is hard to move, reassess, reapproach the scenario, and if you have a problem, we can be easily contacted if it's something that seems to be a little bit more down the lines of this is going to keep me from having a good camping trip, because that's the key here.
Okay, so the first thing I do when I get to a campsite is I pop the top, which I'm going to show you to do. It's really nice because you can stand up easily and you don't have to worry about bonking your head. Before popping the top, now is the time. If you do want the skylight open, you would open it at this point before popping the top, and you would just turn this. Just be mindful of stowing it and closing it before driving. So to pop the top, you're just going to go ahead and use both hands. You're going to squeeze by the metal piece here. You're going to just easily stand up, holding the metal. Then you can release it. Walk behind this bar, this H bar, and you're going to push forward. You're going to hear a click there, and when it's clicked, you're good. Something to be mindful of, if you can just avoid lifting the top up either by the skylight, the skylight there, or the fabric, that will help preserve it. There are 3 screened windows. If you want to zip those down, now's the time. The next thing I do when I get to a campsite is I swivel the seats. The seats being swiveled is really nice because it expands the space, it opens it up some. The passenger seat swivels fully around, and the driver's seat swivels partially around because of the camp features. To swivel your seat, you're going to want to make sure that your backrest is upright. So here's a lever you're just going to push down and it will move up. You're also going to want to make sure that your seat is not too far forward or back. So you're kind of in the center there, which I am. If not, you're going to want to use the second lever to move yourself forward or back. Third, you're going to reach down by your feet, and there's another lever you're going to push down, and then it's really easy. You just use your feet and simply swivel around. The next thing I do is I do go ahead and open the hatch back there. There is a bug screen, which I'll show you how to button in to the back there, but that just allows for good cross ventilation. Your bug screen is back here. It's an important item, and you would just open that up, and there's buttons all around, and you just simply button it on. It's a really great feature. The other item that's in the back is your cleaning spray. Please do only use your cleaning spray in the middle section where kind of the kitchen is. That spray will damage the front dash, so don't spray it up front. Usually when I do travel, I put all of my gear, the luggage in the back, just so there's open space. But after I pop the top, there is a nice shelf there before you set up for bed, where I just go ahead and reorganize. I just shuffle all of my gear up top just to get it out of the way. You don't have to do that, but that's what I do. If you do have, or if you're using the bottom bed and top bed, obviously you're going to have to move all your luggage. What I do at that point is I shuffle it all to the front. Just what I do. You don't have to do it. Those with dogs, you are just going to want to make sure that they are going to be comfortable in here and not tear up anything if you do leave them. Really, we like to say dogs and kids not left unattended in the van. If you do have a well-behaved pup, that's fine. Just make sure that the seats are covered. If you do have a towel or you want to use one of our dog covers, we can give you that. Just no muddy paws on the seats. As far as kids go, really they're not aware a lot of times, so it's really about you helping them. So no jumping on any of the cabinetry. hanging from that H bar. We can't have anyone hanging from that. They're muddy feet on the seats. A lot of times we have a toddler. We don't allow her to do anything in the front seat except hold on to the steering wheel. A lot of kids like to do the on off, on off, on off. So that's just not allowed in a classic. So please just be really aware of your child when they're in here. We want them to have fun, but it's not a playhouse, even though it feels like it a lot of time. A lot of the rough housing and playing will be outside.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about some features on the van. We'll start off with talking about the sink and the 2-burner stove. Again, in our literature, we do have information there in your VanGo Bible in order to know how to operate these items, but we'll go over it as well. First thing to do is open up the lid. The lid is also the countertop for getting up to the upper bunk. So it is a pretty heavy duty lid, but we still, as always, take extra care when using these items. Basically, you have a little lever over here on this side that will allow it to open up. And one thing that you want to make sure too when you're opening up this lid is that your front seat is pushed forward enough so the lid does not catch the headrest. Pretty common that this lid will catch the headrest. You'll lift it up. It's got a little hinge over on this side that will collapse down and allow the lid to stay up. So going over to the sink, it's pretty simple for operation. You just have a lever over here to the right of the faucet head, and you're going to push that up, and that turns on the pump inside the tank. And then as you increase it, the lever going up, that increases the flow of the faucet. And then to turn it off, you just lower it down. When you're done using the faucet, please make sure you push the faucet down into the sink area so it's clear from the cabinet closing. We'll go over to the stovetop. Stovetop, obviously, be very cautious as you can when using an open flame. We think it's very important for you also to have adequate ventilation. So please keep in mind to use your slider windows on the sides of the van. One thing that's very important when using the stovetop is also just knowing where your heat is going. If you've got a lot of stuff burning and you got a lot of flames coming up, you have a tendency to get a lot of heat in this upper part of the cabinet. Please prevent this from happening or else it'll melt the top of the lid. Okay. We got 2 burners here. Pretty straightforward. First thing is always turn on the propane tank on the outside of the van. On the driver's side, there's a propane knob to turn on the propane. And then you'll use your lighter that's inside our cabinet here in order to turn on the propane stovetop. And it's basically pretty straightforward. You'll just turn our knob counterclockwise to the flame, and then you'll use your lighter in order to turn that on.
Your propane is right here, and the valve is in the middle of this metal piece. You just open the propane by turning this knob. And then when you are finished cooking, please do turn off the propane.
On top of that, we also have a cutting board that is clicked into the lid. And basically, you can just pull this down, and this becomes a workbench or a cutting board or a prep table for anything that you may want to prep or gather. So, and then that basically will come back up into the lid and click as well. And then again, when you're closing the lid, just pull up this lever to the right, and that'll allow the lid to come down safely. And then it'll click nice and tight. So each of our vans has an auxiliary battery setup. And really what that entails is an onboard battery that's separate from your engine starting battery. This just allows you to be at your campsite or wherever you are for a little bit more of an extended time without the use of having the engine running, and then you've got the ability to have some comforts. And so what that means is specifically this auxiliary battery system. What is that in charge of powering up, more or less? It would be your camping lights, the interior lights here on the vehicle. Also your refrigerator. This is a 12 volt refrigerator. This works off the auxiliary battery as well as the hookup, power hookup, if you were to have an RV style campsite. The auxiliary battery also carries an inverter in the system, so you have the ability to hook up your household items to an inverter. We have two different setups on inverters. We have both of the inverters are installed in the cabinet below the sink. However, the power on feature is located in two different spots. Depending on if you have a blue inverter underneath the sink, the power switch is on the back side of the inverter, and that allows it to turn on. If you have a yellow style or yellow in color inverter, the way you turn on the inverter is behind this cabinet here. On the face of the cabinet, there is a switch that allows you to turn the inverter on and off, so you can have a little bit more remote control access to the inverter. So we have that there just to give people the ability to not have to worry about, is my phone going to have enough to, am I going to have a way to charge my phone? Is the engine battery going to start after I've been hanging out with the radio on all day? Those things those questions are answered through the installation of the auxiliary battery setup. So that being said, you will have extra power on board in order to hang out and do your thing. Now, how long is that window? It really just depends on how much you're moving around. If you're an everyday driver and you're getting up in the morning and moving around in your van, that auxiliary battery is going to be charged and working and doing just what it needs to do. But if you're going to sit back and hang out for 2 to 3 days without starting the engine, then your auxiliary battery is going to hinder itself and not going to be able to provide you with all the power that you need. A couple ways to get around that. Start the vehicle, run it for a while, go take a trip, find something new, take an adventure. I'll get that auxiliary battery charged back up in no time. The other thing is that a couple of our vans have solar power, so that'll keep that auxiliary battery charged as long as you're not draining everything in the system. But for the most part, as you use our systems and our vans, you'll be fine with the auxiliary battery. If anything, there's the indicator panel on the front of the camper cabinet that will give you an idea of where that battery stands. One question from renters is, how do I get power inside the van, or what are my power options? And we have the onboard battery power, but we also have the ability to have an RV hookup from an RV campsite. And when you do a hookup at an RV campsite, you will get power into the vehicle. And where does that power go? The power can end up at one of these outlets in the vehicle. You have one outlet here at in front of the bench seat, and that'll have power from the outside hookup. We do have two vans that also have an additional outlet below the power outlet that is going to be receiving power from the inverter, which is part of your auxiliary battery system.
In your VanGo manual, you will have all of your cleaning supplies listed and where the items are located. In this front drawer, you'll have your soap for your dishes. Below, you'll have your dustpan and broom, and in the back closet, you'll have your spray for cleaning up messes. It is important to return your van in a good condition interior wise. Don't worry about the exterior, but just cleaning up messes is important. All of the laundered items do have a white tag that says to take the tag off if you do use the item. That way we know to launder the item and that it was used. So please do remove that when using those items. And then all of your kitchen gear is here. We really have tried to think of everything, so you're not missing anything to cook or anything else as far as camping. So kitchen gear is in there. Back here, a lot of times your sleep gear and your pillows are back here as well. your pillows are in pillowcases. You do have to open them up and fluff them up to use them. They're just compact. And then again, here's the little tag. If you use that, just take it off. And so they're really comfortable. You just have to kind of fluff them up and let them just naturally kind of puff up. And then please do put all of the pillows back into the pillowcases before using them. There you go. You do have 2 fans that are on board. There's a larger fan, and that does have rechargeable batteries, so when the batteries are dead, don't throw them away because we'll reuse them. And then there is a plug as well, so you would need your inverter on if those batteries don't work and you needed to plug it in. The plug is down by your feet, which I'll show you in a moment. And then your sleeping bags are back there, and your flat sheets are also back there. So both beds, up and down, have your fitted sheets already on them, so you don't have to fumble around with those. But your flat sheets, if you wanted to use them, are back in this area. The only other thing back there is a gray water bin. So when you're using your faucet, it actually drops onto the ground, the water does. So if you want to capture that water, that's what that bin is for. Otherwise, you can use it for something else too.
Little bit of information about the refrigerator. It is a refrigerator that also has a freezer installed in the top. To operate the refrigerator, there is a push button device up top. You're just going to push the button down and pull the refrigerator door open. You'll notice you have a nice light here. And then just behind the light is a dial that is from 0 to 7. And what my suggestion is that when you get in your van for the first time and you're just getting started, crank the fridge up to 4 or 5. And then as it gets cold and you get moving down the road, you can bring it back down to 3, and everything will stay nice and cold. And then just make sure that when you're not using the fridge or that the door is closed tightly.
To use this table here, there are 2 knobs that you unscrew, and your second knob is in the center of the table, and you just simply bring it out towards you and bring it around. You're going to want to lock it in position, both knobs, so it stays steady, and then you can use that for cooking, for playing games, whatever it would be. One thing that's important, if it is out, that you are not using it for leverage to get up into the van. A lot of times they do break in that case. So just so I'm not tempted, if I'm not using the table, I just put it back. So to put it back, you just loosen those knobs and take it, and you'll see the molding here is open just from age. So that opening is an indicator that that's the opening or side that will be facing towards the closet. If you try to move it this way, it won't fit. So that opening, just face it towards the closet and it will easily move back in. Another thing to note is don't slam it back. It's really, really light, so it's kind of easy to just get carried away and just swing it back real hard. That will damage the back wall here. So it's just a light moving it back, and then go ahead and lock it in place, especially when you're driving, so it's not bouncing around when you're driving. In order to open the bench seat, just pull the lever and use this latch here to keep the seat open. Most of the time your camp chairs are under the seat. However, there are times when it's a party of 4, they're also in the closet. Down here you will have your jack. You will have a stool and a hose for your water hookup and also your electrical cord.
So depending on the van that you have, and the setup that each van has is a little bit different as far as some of its features. And what I'm specifically talking about is the heater. Some of our vans have a propane heater, and then others have a gasoline heater. And both of them function just the same, but knowing the differences of the two is important. So with a propane heater, they are operated obviously by propane. And there is a level indicator on the propane tank to help you know how high or low your propane level is. We do have propane that gets filled. The tanks get filled up every time to make sure that they're full for renters, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. If you have a propane heater or you have a gasoline heater, the thermostat or the function switch is in the same spot on all the vans, just above the seat belt and the back cabinet. So for any need of operating the heaters, this is where you're going to operate it, right here at the back cabinet. The gasoline heater or the propane heater may have a different area of where the vent is located to disperse heat, wherever that may be, whether it's underneath the refrigerator or it's in the rear bench. Please just be attentive to having clothes or food or anything in front of that heater vent. Just anything that's obstructing that is going to keep the van from being properly heated. We also have carbon monoxide detectors on board for just to make sure that people are safe. Not only do they feel safe, but they are safe. Those are located on board just to provide extra precaution. When you have a gasoline heater on your vehicle, it is best to have the fuel tank at 1/4 of a tank or higher if you're planning on using the heater. If you are using any of the heaters, it would be best that you do not use it in short spurts, that you're going to be using it for a while rather than 10 or 15 minutes. It needs to be run for a minimum of 20 to 30 minutes just to make sure they can stay clean and operating at their best efficiency.
So there are some differences about the two beds. The bottom bed has thicker cushion, and also we do provide mattress toppers, and that's thicker as well on the bottom, so it's just a little bit more comfortable. But you have less room because of the camper features, so it's not as wide as upstairs. Upstairs the cushions are thinner and you have more space. So I'm going to show you how to open up the top bed here, but first I'll let you know how to get up there once it's open. There is a step right here, so 1 foot there, and then once the lid is closed, your second foot would go here, and then you would hop up. It sounds a lot more acrobatic than it is. It's quite easy. And there is a board here. You are going to want to pivot it open towards you about an inch and a half. At that point, you're going to grab with both hands in the middle of the board and flip the board towards you. Sometimes the board needs a little pressure in the center here to fully release. And then to get up on the top bed, you're just going to want to take off your shoes and step your first foot here, and then on the lid and up. To put the bed back, you're just going to grab this board and put it back. So you are going to want to make sure that it pivots back, so just a little jiggle. And it's okay the cushion's sticking out a little. You're just going to want to make sure that this board is in line with this molding here, so that's flat. Cool. And then you can bring the top down. You just go ahead and grab the H bar and pull back towards you. And I usually bring it down to about my head, and then I do my tucking of the canvas. It's important to tuck the canvas properly, because if it's outside of the van or if it gets pinched, it could ruin the canvas, and they're very time consuming to replace. So just be aware of just stowing it properly. So to stow the canvas, I reach my arms out to the middle and I just grab the fabric and I roll the canvas into itself. And I do that all the way around. Now that I have it all rolled, I bring it down a little bit more. And at this point, I just pull the fabric in. There are 2 black tabs on both sides. You do not want the canvas on the interior side of that black tab because you don't want it to pinch down on it. So just make sure that's not pinching the black. And so once you know that you have all the canvas inside of the van, and again, it might be worth just going around the van to make sure of that. You just squeeze and pull down. You will hear a click. You can even test it. It's not going to be flying up on you.
Collapsing the rear bench for your bed. Basically, you'll go ahead and pull the knob and towards you and open up the seat like this. And then what you'll do is you'll take, there's a groove on either side that will allow you to pull the seat, but you'll basically grab this and then that will allow the bench seat to collapse. And then you pull it towards you and it'll collapse flat. And sometimes you'll find that the rear cushion gets in the way. You just put your hand back there and push the cushion towards the back of the van. And then you have your bed.
So there are 3 hookups outside your van. The middle one is for your electric if you have shore power at your site. The right hand side is for your water tank. If you don't have water at your site, then you would be using your tank. It is a 14-gallon tank. You just go to, a lot of times at a campground, there will be a place where you can hook up. You just fill up your water tank. There is no automatic valve shut off though, so you really are just listening for it to fill, or you would feel it squirting out at you. So just at that point, just simply take the hose off the hookup at that point. So under the van here, I'm going to show you a couple things. On this side is where the faucet is. The faucet does need somewhere to drain. It is going to be draining onto the ground. That's why I have the gray water container in your closet if you want to catch that drainage. You will have to, you would just reach down and there is a white cap that you're going to just screw off. And there's some right there. So if you are using the onboard water tank, you are going to want to drain it before you go to your next destination. You do not want to be carrying around 14 gallons of water. It will kill your gas mileage and it's just not good for the van. And the drain is on the right side of the propane tank and it's got this little white cap. Please do, after you drain it, just put that cap back on.
So talking about gauges, we've got on the right side of the dash, we've got two gauges. We have the fuel gauge and the temperature gauge. The fuel gauge is not like a modern day vehicle where it's always extremely accurate. They actually will move around a little bit depending on your driving conditions. The fuel gauge also takes a couple minutes for it to balance out. So when driving on the road, just make sure you're keeping an eye on your fuel gauge itself. On your fuel mileage, you're going to get typically about 170 miles per tank on your fuel consumption. So just being attentive to that as you're driving. The temperature gauge is just to the left of the fuel gauge. And not only does the temperature gauge have a needle for it to go up and down, but it also has an indicator light. So anytime there is a overheating condition or a low level coolant condition, that light is going to come on in the middle of the dash, and it's also going to buzz at you with an audible noise. So just be attentive to that. The coolant temperature gauge is probably the most important gauge to look at in the van as far as its features on the dash, just to make sure the van's staying healthy. In the middle of the dash, you'll have a series of lights that will come on with a key turned on, engine off. That'd be the battery light and the engine oil light. Those lights should go off when the vehicle is running. If for any reason the vehicle is running and you have an oil light that comes on or a battery indicator light that comes on, both of those lights are red, please pull over as soon as possible and connect with us using the resources in your VanGo Bible. Typically on your van, when fully warmed up, your white temperature gauge needle will sit just above the red blinking light that would come on when you first start the car. So please be attentive to the gauge reading just above the red light. In hotter conditions, or when the air conditioning is on, that gauge may come above that red light a bit, even to the point of 3/4 of the way up. Nothing to be alarmed of, just making sure that that gauge is not continuing to go up and increase in level. You have your turn signal switch on the left side of the steering column. Some of our vans have cruise control, some do not. We feel that cruise control is pretty non-user friendly with the design of the Vanagon, so we do tell customers or renters to not typically use the cruise control, as you'll fight the cruise control more than you'll enjoy it. When you're driving a van, the RPM gauge is color-coded, green to black and then red. We would like customers, when driving on the road, to always stay in the green range of the engine RPM gauge. This is the healthy range of the engine. To the right of the steering wheel, there are a series of levers on the dash with a sticker below that will tell you the function of the levers for the heating and air conditioning. To the right of those levers is your blower fan switch for the front fan. This is fresh air and heat only. To the right of that is your stereo. Your stereo is powered through your auxiliary battery system. And there is a remote and the console for your stereo features, as well as a manual in your VanGo Bible. To the right of your stereo are your AC control switches. Renters, please keep in mind that the van will run with less power and will run warmer with the air conditioning on. So please be very attentive to the temperature gauge on the dash. In addition to that, please be aware that as the design of the van itself, air conditioning is not a strong suit on the Volkswagen Vanagon. Again, driving a van is an adventure and it's a lot of fun. These vans are not to be driven at a high speed or off-road conditions. Please be attentive to your terrain, as they're not four-wheel drive vehicles. We do want them to just be cared for so we can continue to keep them on the road long term. They're not fast, they're not made to be abused and to be raced. So we would like everybody to just treat the vans as if they were theirs, with care and attentiveness. Just for any reason that you need roadside assistance and or you have a flat or need the spare, all of our vans have the spares located underneath the front bumper. There is a bar that holds up the spare tire, and that is released with the lug nut wrench that you would have in your vehicle in case there was a flat. So that's something to be aware of. All right, guys, well, that's a wrap. We've gone through our orientation. You've been so patient in learning about our Volkswagen camper van rental that we offer. And just a few notes. Main thing is we want you to have a good time. We really want you to have an experience that you'll never forget. It's super important to us. And we want to know about that experience too, whether it's positive or negative. Our goal is to create memories for people, and the vans are the perfect way to do this. Remember though, they're classics, so they're a little, you have to be gentle and treat them like they're your own. So if you run into problems, if you have an issue, a concern on something in the way it's operating or moving, don't hesitate to give us a call. Connect with us via email or whatever it may be. We want to make sure that things are good for you. Short of that, we want you to have the best trip. We wish you the best, happy travels, and cheers from VanGo Auto. So depending on what van you have, you may or may not have an awning. All of our awnings are Fiamma awnings. They are a 8-foot awning and really easy to use. Each of the vans, when you have an awning, will come with a pole to retract and extend the awning, as well as you'll have a center pole in the middle, so when it's fully extended out, you'll have some rigidity in the awning itself. The awnings are fairly easy to use. You'll just want to grab your pole, extension pole, and attach it to the awning. Pretty simple. What I do suggest is that you open up the front door of the van in order to use the awning, if that's doable. If weather doesn't allow it, I get it. It just keeps you from scratching the face of the door when using the awning. So basically the awning has a hook at the end of the pole, and you're going to want to just plug that into the side of the awning. There's only one spot to extend and retract the awning. These awnings are self-latching, so they'll close and lock on their own, and they'll open up and unlock on their own. When you get the awning out about a foot or so and past the sliding door, you can let go of your stick if the door is not in the way, and you can let it hang. Please be careful of the finish of the vehicles. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to come around, you're going to stand behind the top of the awning, and there are poles that you're going to pull out. These poles pull straight out. They're on a pivot, and this is the leg of the awning. They're going to pull out and they're going to pivot down on a swinging joint. And then you're going to unlock this knob here in order to give the height of the pole that you need. And then you'll lock it in place. Keeping in mind, the foot of this leg needs to be facing flat this way. Again, this needs to be facing this way. And these legs pull straight out and they come down. So now that we've got both poles locked on the ground, we can then come back to our wand and extend out the awning. Again, counterclockwise to extend it. You can extend it out like this, and then you see the poles are leaning. You basically will come back into the center of the awning. You can lift it up. Once it's fully extended, there is a centering rod that you can use in order to give yourself a little more rigidity. Plug it in to the openings here and here, and that'll give you the ability to have this as a center rafter. A couple notes about the awnings that's really important. First off, they're pretty heavy duty, but they're not indestructible. And so please be attentive that if it's raining or heavy storms, that you don't use the awning. It's not going to be necessary. In addition to that, they can take a good rain. They can handle the load of the rain and the rainstorm and so forth. But debris and branches and that sort of stuff, we do want to keep off from the awning. We do ask that you respect the use of the awning and keeping it clean as well. It should never be retracted back into the vehicle if there's a lot of debris on top of the material. It'll damage it, and we don't want people to feel have to be responsible for those kinds of occurrences. So as nice as it is, we want to keep them nice, so let's keep them clean and operate them as well as you can. Retracting them is pretty easy. It's basically the same thing as extending it. You're just going to pull it back in. It's very key that this foot is facing away from the van. Again, this foot is facing away from the van. We'll come up into the body of the awning and we'll push it into the body, and you'll hear it clip on both sides. So when closing, it's there's a little flag or a little window that will retract into the body when the awning is fully closed. So if you can watch, I'm closing the awning, and you see that little window go away, that little red tab. That means that the awning is closed and locked. You don't have to put a lot of force in the awning. It's not going to like that.